Family Talk, 7 p.m.
Insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
The president's going to make sure whatever deal we get is in our best interest, that it's fair and reciprocal trade, that it protects our intellectual property, and that it actually has safeguards to make sure that the Chinese follow through with whatever commitments that they make.
Federal resources and frontline defenders are overwhelmed at the southern border. In the fiscal year 2020 budget, provides sizable funding of an $8.6 billion for full completion of the wall and other border security resources.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Is there sound now? How about now? All right, welcome to the program. Stacy Washington, host of Stacy on the Right here on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. Fantastic to be with you. And we have a jam-packed show for you today. We are going to be chatting with a fantastic guest this hour. We have Benjamin Weingarten. He is actually a senior fellow at the London Center for Public Policy Research and a senior contributor at The Federalist. And we are also going to be talking about, there's a few things going on. Washington State is making churches, or wants to make churches, pay for abortions. Now, I know this is something that's weird to me. When we look at abortion in this country and how many different ways you can go about getting it funded, it seems ridiculous that we would need to have churches funded as well. Like, why would a church need to fund abortion for its employees or people who are working there, most of whom don't believe in abortion anyway? Why would a church need to do that? But it's about command and control, so we're going to discuss that. We are also going to talk about Pelosi making this statement about impeaching Trump just not being worth it. I got to say, when I look at that, when I listen to that, she's right, but I just wonder exactly what has happened, what has occurred that would make her, besides the question itself, that would make her so adamant. She was adamant about this. So I want to listen to that. It's number 4.
I just don't believe in it. They wanted me to impeach President Bush for the Iraq War. I didn't believe in it then. I don't believe in it now. It divides the country unless there's some conclusive evidence that takes us to that place. Thank you.
So did you hear what she said? I just don't believe in it. They wanted me to impeach President Bush. So she's been around a long time, first of all. It's kind of disturbing how long she's been there doing the same thing. But then there's also the issue of we got to give her credit when she tells the truth, and she's telling the truth here. I think what she's seen is poll data, and she's also heard from constituents that if the Democrats waste the next 2 years that they've got before the president is up for re-election, if they waste that time trying to impeach him, then they're going to be losing voters. For every minute they're talking about impeaching the president, they're going to be losing possible votes. I want to give you a couple of Bible verses. It's our encouragement time. Our daily encouragement today, we're going to talk about division. Jude 1:19 says, "These are the people who divide you, who follow mere natural instincts and do not have the Spirit." 1 Corinthians 1:10 through 13 says, "I appeal to you, brothers and sisters, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that all of you agree with one another in what you say, and that there will be no divisions among you, that you be perfectly united in mind and thought. My brothers and sisters come from Chloe's household. Some from Chloe's household have informed me that there are quarrels among you. What I mean is this: one of you says, I follow Paul, another, I follow Apollos, another, I follow Cephas, and another, I follow Christ. Is Christ divided? Was Paul crucified for you? Were you baptized in the name of Paul?" This refers to divisions in denominations and some doctrinal divisions. God wants us to follow the one true gospel of Jesus Christ as is found in the scriptures, and not to divide ourselves along denominational lines. Now, that doesn't mean we can't have denominations and we can't all serve Christ in our individual churches, but it means that we're not to sit around arguing and bickering over which doctrines we follow, as opposed to winning souls for Christ, because it is far more important than arguing over whatever the issue of the day is when it comes to, the doctrine. If it's not in the Bible, then, leave it. Let's not argue over it. And I see that happening a little bit, where people are picking sides over some issues that, I'm not saying the issues aren't important. I'm not saying they don't have ramifications in their lives for their families or their kids, but it's becoming kind of a popularity contest. Well, this person, believes the same as I do on this issue. And we're together on this, and it becomes something that supersedes the fact that we're brothers and sisters in Christ and we need to be unified. The enemy is not worried about who we follow particularly. He's worried about what we're doing for Jesus Christ. So that can be the delineating factor. Does this bring souls to Christ? Does this win fame for the nation, meaning for Jesus Christ's nation of believers? Does this glorify God? Does it honor him? If not, leave it. It's that simple. And that's something we all need to hear every now and again. So that's the encouragement for today. So now I got to talk about this Washington State church. So there's a lawsuit going on, and it's a church in the state of Washington, which is, they're suing the state. So this church in Washington State is suing the actual Washington State government, which is trying to force churches to pay for elective abortion coverage through their health plans. Now, this is, again, where I hate this, because in my mind and in the minds of so many other millions of Americans who have employer-based healthcare insurance, what is contained in that plan should be between the health insurance company that is negotiating with the employer for the benefits and the employees who are signing the employment contracts. Those three groups have the ultimate decision-making capability, because if an employer says, I'm not going to cover well woman, then that means they don't value female employees, and female employees should be looking for employment elsewhere. If they say, we're not going to cover, prenatal and OBGYN and women's health as it pertains to people having children, then again, people would have to govern that accordingly. That means any man who works for the company whose wife is on the plan wouldn't be able to get her, pregnancy covered so they can have a baby and expand their family. That is something that should be between the employer and the employee and the health insurance company that's negotiating the benefits. Now, why do I say that? Well, because who's closest to the problem? Who can ultimately make the decision? When a company makes a choice about what they will and won't cover, the employees have the ability to say, you know what, this isn't for me, I'm walking. And I know that the alternative to that is you need your job, you don't want to walk, but there are other jobs out there, especially in this economy and this job market. No one has to work for someone they don't want to work for anymore. There are 7.1 million jobs out there that are available. And I know the argument from other people who like to criticize is, well, those are unskilled jobs. Are you saying that you don't believe that God can help you find the job with the benefits plan that works for your family, that you're just stuck where you are? There's no answer for you. Prayer doesn't work. God doesn't move in your situation, and your skills and your talents don't make room for you in the marketplace? Sounds like a lot of other personal problems are going on here. The most important thing we can do is stand up for our right to operate everywhere that we exist as Christians, and that's what this church is doing. And I'm glad they're doing it, because if Washington State was successful in forcing churches to do it, they'd be able to, they probably are, the churches are the last round of defense. They probably already forced the employers to cover this stuff. So ADF, Alliance Defending Freedom, they've sent lawyers to represent Cedar Park Assembly of God to challenge the constitutionality and legality of a new state mandate that requires a Seattle area church to fund abortion if it provides its staff members access to group health insurance. Now, you could say, well, with the mandate gone, you could, this church could simply stop providing medical insurance to employees. They could force their employees to get into an association plan, to form their own association and get in a plan on their own and negotiate directly with the health insurer. And that is an option. But no church should be coerced to pay for abortions, least of all a church that dedicates its ministry to protecting and celebrating life. That's a quote from ADF legal counsel Alyssa Graves. She was talking in a press release saying further, Cedar Park believes and teaches that every human life begins at conception and is worthy of protection at every point until natural death. So that's pretty astounding. And the bill from Washington State actually says if churches pay for maternity coverage, they must pay for abortion coverage as well. So if they're going to pay to bring a baby into the world healthy, they have to also pay to kill a baby. Can you? I still don't understand this. It's the deception of the enemy. He tells lies, people believe it, and then they start behaving like this. So the bill is called State Senate Bill 6219, and it was signed into law last March, so about a year ago. And Cedar Park purchased a group health insurance plan in order to provide high-quality health care coverage for their employees and fulfill its legal obligation under the law. And then, then they came under the law. And this was introduced by Democratic State Senator Steve Hobbs. And so Steve Hobbs actually received criticism from Catholic bishops that there was no exclusion for religious organizations. And Hobbs replied, true to the Democrats, he said, if you don't like it, you can sue. This is about the woman and not about the religious beliefs. Unbelievable. He probably goes to church, he probably goes to church with that horrible, awful, no good attitude that he's sporting there. So now I want to get to the phones. If you would like to call in, the call lines are open at 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. We are going to be really, really jam-packed today on the program. So I'm hoping to get to some calls today, but we have to make sure that we can also cover all of our stuff. We're also going to be talking about Rio Grande Border Chief Karish and his statements. He's a border chief on the Rio Grande sector, which is one of the unprotected areas of our border. And he's going to be, we'll hear a little bit of audio from him about how they're apprehending MS-13 members, people from Turkey, China, so these are not, I'm not talking about Americans who are originally from these countries. They're apprehending actual Chinese nationals, Turkey nationals. And in addition to that, there's a story out, and I know some people are really ticked off about it, but it's the way they feel, and they've written this letter for a purpose. It's ICE officers writing an angry letter to President Trump. They're apparently very unhappy that, according to them, the president has not answered all of his promises on stopping illegal immigration. Specifically, the ICE officers who endorsed President Trump in 2016 say he's failed to follow through on the get tough promises he made on the campaign trail, specifically that he has allowed catch and release of illegal aliens to go into overdrive. They say they're being roped into mundane tasks like opening doors on vans to release immigrants already caught by Border Patrol agents. They say that it's dragging the officers from their usual duties of nabbing fugitives or scouring local prisons and jails for immigrant criminals who lived illegally in the U.S. who are ready to be deported. And that's something that I don't think Americans really, we don't have a grip on how many people we're paying to house and feed in prisons and jails and lockups who already have deportation orders. They came into the country illegally. They were given a court date, an ankle bracelet, and a letter, and they went off into the interior country, and they've been working for 3, 5, 15, 20, whatever, a long time. And then when their case finally comes up to the docket, they don't show up, and so they're not there to hear the Immigration and Customs Enforcement judge say, you are no longer allowed to be in the United States. You need to be deported. And since they don't appear to defend themselves, they don't get to appeal the action, and therefore deportation orders are given for them. That's why we need such a huge force of, people to work for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, because they literally have to run these people down. They have to scour the jails because sanctuary cities don't cooperate, and sanctuary cities are where a lot of these criminals go to hide out. So when they're arrested for committing other crimes besides entering the country illegally, then their names are supposed to go to a database that can flag them for ICE so ICE can come and get them and deport them. So why would they be opening up vans and doing mundane tasks? They're blaming Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen and the acting director of ICE, Mr. Vitello, for this new development. So this is ongoing. We'll continue to cover this as we learn more. We'll be back in a minute.
When an abortion-minded woman walks into a preborn pregnancy center, she encounters love and compassion and gets to meet her baby by ultrasound.
And I was like, I'm going to go to the abortion clinic. And I already had my mind made up.
This mom didn't make it to the abortion clinic. Instead, God led her to a preborn center.
And the lady is giving me my ultrasound. She's like making these weird faces. And then she's like, it's 2. And I'm like, I just start crying. I start texting my friends and like, I can't.
The Ministry of Preborn was able to help this mom save not just 1 life, but 2 through ultrasounds. Preborn centers help save babies' lives and souls. Preborn runs and leads Christian pregnancy centers all over the country. To find out more, go to preborn.com. That's preborn.com, or dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250 and say baby. Your love can save a life.
Hi, I'm Crawford Loritz with a Legacy Moment. I have a friend who loves to be in the center of the action where things are happening. He has a hard time saying no, so he tends to overcommit. Then things start slipping through the cracks and he can't keep his commitments or meet the expectations he's raised in the minds of others. So people get frustrated with him and disappointed in him. It's sort of a downward spiral. I've learned the hard way that sometimes no is the most positive word in the English language, because what we say no to frees us up to be able to say yes, hopefully to the right thing. It's helpful to know ourselves and be realistic about our capacity. Can you really do this? Do you have what it takes to meet the assignment here? Have you built enough time into your schedule to be able to follow through on what you just said you'd do? Listen to these words in Joshua chapter 19, verse 9. The inheritance of the sons of Simeon was taken from the portion of the sons of Judah, for the share of the sons of Judah was too large for them. So the sons of Simeon received an inheritance in the midst of Judah's inheritance. There are 2 principles I just want to point out from this verse. Number 1, take some things off your plate. Reduce the amount of things you commit yourself to doing. Then number 2, sometimes the best way of helping someone is to give something away. Say, I'm not able to do that myself, but I know someone else who can help you. Well, here's what I want you to remember today. Each time you make a commitment, your integrity is on the line. If you can't handle what you have, then give some of it away.
You've been listening to Legacy Moment with Crawford Loritz, pastor of Fellowship Bible Church in Roswell, Georgia, and heard on the weekly program Living a Legacy. To view an online transcript of today's thoughts by Crawford, go to livingalegacy.org. That's livingalegacy.org.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you so much for being with us today. We are happy to have our next guest on the program. It's Benjamin Weingarten, Senior Fellow at the London Center for Policy Research, Senior Contributor at The Federalist. Thank you, Ben, for joining the show today.
Well, thanks so much for having me.
So let's talk about this Huawei. Am I saying that right? Huawei, Chinese company. They have this whole 5G network that they're rolling out, and they also have other products that they currently have in markets all over the world. And it's alleged, and perhaps we have some proof, I'm not sure, that they are using their software and the things that they sell in the marketplace to embed spying software into our phones and telephone systems, et cetera, from China.
Yeah, well, I think that it starts to look at this from a 30,000-foot level, which is Huawei is the largest telecommunications product provider, service provider, infrastructure builder in the world. And as a China-based company, they essentially operate at the mercy of the Chinese Communist Party. They are a state-sanctioned organization. They're considered a national champion, which means that the government of China, in particular the Chinese Communist Party, has supported their rise and their dominance, and they are also subject to Chinese laws when it comes to national security, which means that if China says we need to collect information from you as a global telecommunications network builder, service provider, products provider, China can essentially scoop up that information via Huawei. And Huawei should be viewed as a much bigger player in terms of China's overall ambitions to be a global world power in general, and in particular have control over the global telecommunications infrastructure. And as you rightly noted, Huawei is the leader right now in 5G, fifth generation telecommunications network technology. They're trying to roll that technology out throughout the world, and the U.S. has been engaged in a comprehensive effort to try to push back against that abroad, as well as restricting the usage of Huawei products and infrastructure in the U.S. government and perhaps as well in civilian use down the road. And, just as we were coming to air yesterday, the U.S. government for the first time via the ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, came out and told our German counterparts that the U.S. may not engage in full intelligence sharing with our German allies anymore to the degree to which Germany uses Huawei products in their infrastructure. And I think that underscores just how serious an issue this is.
So I saw that, and I was concerned because one of the things that we're able to do in intelligence sharing is, we're able to identify threats for terrorism, like potential terroristic acts that might be underway in Germany. They're planning them either in Germany for Germany, or they're planning them in Germany, but they're going to execute them in the United States or Great Britain. And so that terrorism can be thwarted through the sharing of information. So for Germany to decide to partner with Huawei is, it's basically them saying that partnership is more important than dealing with terrorism, which they have a huge problem with it. They have a 2 rating on the State Department list of places that Americans should travel to, which means extreme caution. Really, it's kind of like a do not travel there.
Absolutely. And of course, as you and your listeners probably recall, several of the jihadist masterminds of the September 11th attack themselves were based for long stretches of time in Germany. And of course, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of returning jihadis from ISIS and elsewhere in the Middle East, returning to their European home countries. And Germany already had a major jihadist problem before that, given refugee resettlement there. So it is absolutely a major issue, and it implicates U.S. national security as well as national security for Germany, Europe, and ultimately the world. No question.
So let's talk a little bit about options. If we're saying that they can't use Huawei, and you did just describe there that they have the most advanced 5G network, and that's why they're rolling it out, and that's why everybody's so excited about it, what can they use instead? And why are they the leaders in that area instead of, say, an American company?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Well, and part of it is, and this is the case with many of these sorts of companies based out of China, that over time, part of the way that they developed their technologies and were able to build valuable portfolios of products is through allegedly intellectual property theft and the like, which is really a slap in the face to America, because you have to remember, putting this in broader context, America really gave China entree to this world economic architecture that we built, we maintained, we set the rules of the road for. And the whole theory, the whole basis of the kind of U.S.-China partnership was that there would be free trade, and ultimately liberalization of economics would lead to liberalization of politics. And actually the opposite has happened. China has become less liberal as they've grown richer and as the volume of trade has increased. And as a result of, in many ways, unfair trade practices, stolen intellectual property, and the like, it's given them, in a sense, an unfair advantage over everyone else. We play by the rules, China doesn't, so China gets all the advantages from that malign behavior. And so, unfortunately, the pricing of many of these products, and in particular those from Huawei, is basically able to undercut those in the West. And it should be noted that even if it was uneconomic, China might still be pursuing it. You know, many of the relationships that China has engaged in more broadly when it comes to, for example, its Belt and Road Initiative to build infrastructure throughout the world, a lot of those projects have gone belly up. But essentially, China doesn't care. They don't care if the economics don't work, because these projects serve strategic goals. In the case of Belt and Road, it's to give them leverage over other countries and a foothold into the territory of other countries, which means essentially an expansion of Chinese sovereignty. And in this telecommunications space, it's also an expansion of China's sovereignty in some sense, just in a digital sense. And in terms of you brought up, what can we do essentially? And what it really comes down to, I think, for the Western world is that we have to value national security over saving some money on telecommunications infrastructure. Infrastructure isn't just some other good and service. This is about basically the free flow of information. And if your adversaries have access potentially to significant amounts of sensitive information, that poses a real problem both to governments and to civilians as well. And what I wrote about recently in The Federalist was specifically the fact that our federal government has put into place law which says that no federal agency essentially can use Huawei products or even vendors who happen to use those products themselves. So the idea is, let's start with keeping it away from the most sensitive area, which is government. And Huawei is now engaging in a lawsuit against the U.S. government. And what I found so breathtaking about it, not that it's all surprising, is that they're essentially trying to use our Constitution against us. So in their lawsuit against the U.S. government, they claim, they reference James Madison and the Federalist Papers, and they reference Alexander Hamilton, and they try to make constitutional arguments which say that the U.S. government shouldn't be able to restrict a company that's directed by a foreign competitor, if not adversary, from having access to our most sensitive government communications potentially. And I just find that amazing because they talk about in their lawsuit that there are separation of power issues, there are due process rights issues, and there are bill of attainder issues. Essentially, in this case, a company that is being punished without any recourse to fight the government's punishment. Well, China has no separation of powers. Mm-hmm. China arbitrarily and capriciously punishes millions of people inside its territory.
And outside.
And the fact that they would...
They punish their citizens who live abroad when they want them to return. If they feel they're having too much fun being outside of China, they'll tell them, we'll kill your family if you don't get back here. And the Chinese citizens have to go back because they don't want their whole family killed or sent to a work camp. Yeah. They're very much into command and control. But I saw the lawsuit, Ben, and I thought what was funny about it was, in addition to the breathtakingly, it's so obvious to me as an American that they were talking about their rights here in America as if they give those same rights to their citizens, which they do not. But it was also the fact that they claim to, in essence, they're saying they have a right to operate their company the way that they do, and we have no right to try to protect our sensitive information from the way their company operates. I think it's kind of astounding, but I'll tell you what, Ben, one of the things that I think is the reason that drove them to do that lawsuit, other than the fact that they're just galling, they're doing that because they noticed that liberals here in the United States actually use any law that's available to them to argue things that are completely nonsensical, and judges here say, yep, you're right, that's constitutional. Yep, you can do that. No, nope, the government can't do that. So they're hoping that some wacko judge will give them the same kind of rights that liberals here have gotten through doing the same tactics.
I think it's a fantastic point, and especially in the Trump era where judges, many federal judges, and you can find a random jurisdiction that's going to have exactly the sort of judge that you're describing, will take a particularly minimal view of what executive authority is, or even potentially what congressional authority is, if it is about advancing a Trump administration agenda item, because they're prioritizing politics over justice, over law. And in this case, of all things, our national security is imperative, and the government's first job is to protect our life and limbs so we can pursue our happiness. So the idea that an adversary, a company that's directed by an adversarial regime where our government, our intelligence community has told us explicitly that based upon their investigation, this is a company that is used to engage in espionage, and the heads of all of the major intelligence agencies and national security agencies have all said they would never use these products. They would never advise that their friends, their families, their children would use these products. It's absolutely absurd to think that a lawsuit like this would seriously be considered. But I think you're absolutely right that they take a lesson from the left, which is that you try to win any way you can. Yeah. You compete on every single ground that you possibly can, and you even use the Constitution against us if you think that it's going to serve your purpose.
And I think there's also something else that we kind of discount, which is it's not so much that they believe in our Constitution. They just simply had people read over it. They looked at other case law and they said, find me something in that Constitution that says we can operate as a company, and let's, you throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. And that's what this lawsuit is. I don't think they're going to give up. Obviously, this is intentional. They've been on a long, multi-decade plan. First, it started with when they realized that when we put our companies in China to use their manufacturing, that they had access to all of this information. And so that's why president after president, they've just steamrolled through. If you want to keep building and using our cheap labor, you have to let us see everything so we can understand how to, build these screws. Not the drawing isn't enough. We need to see the intellectual property behind it. Then they started flooding the market with their cheap knockoffs. When they realized that was working, they thought, we could do a lot more with this. And they've been on a plan to do just that, do as much as possible with the information that they lift from America. I remember being on school board years ago, Ben, and sitting in a conference for Missouri School Board Association members. And one of the workshops was about how Chinese teachers take these information gathering trips to the United States. And they come to the U.S. because they want to see what a United States public K-12 classroom looks like. And they're always shocked by, first of all, that we just use those old school desks from like 100 years ago, and the kids sit on plastic seats. And it's not sensory, like the Chinese schools, they try to put this sensory environment in where it's this, kind of pleasing to the eye. American schools are pleasing to the eye, but they're not as, you would think they'd be fancier for the product that we put out. The students and the people themselves, they would ask questions and all the things they want to know about, not testing methodologies, not how to get kids to do math faster. They've already got that down. All of their questions were centered around how teachers got kids to be so creative. And the teachers would say, well, we actually don't, like when kids come to us, they're already either creatively minded or they're not, and we just cultivate that. But our curriculum is basically to cover all of the bases because every kid's not creative. Some of them are more scientifically minded, and the Chinese teachers and instructors always came back to what parts of the curriculum, the classroom, the training, the continuing education were centered around fostering creativity in kids. So one of the principals asked them at the end of one of these tours, why is your focus so, like you seem only focused on creativity in your questions? And the Chinese instructors said, we are trying to figure out why, even though our students excel at math and science and clearly have better knowledge than your kids nationally, we outscore you, we out-educate you, but your kids they grow up to produce iPhones and, they grow up to do these things that are creative. They create products and services that then are able to be used anywhere in the world. And our kids don't do that. And we want to know how you're cultivating the creative aspect of the American kids. That tells me that they know that the stealing will come to an end at some point. And when they can't steal it from us anymore, they want their kids to be able to produce the same things that our kids can produce, but they're not able to get it because of communism. Now, obviously, no one will tell them that. No one will tell a person from a communist country the reason your kids aren't creative is because of communism, in part. But that's what I see in my mind.
Yeah, it's just a fantastic point and such a telling anecdote, and it really does come down to, I wholeheartedly agree with you, we have a culture of liberty here, and that fosters entrepreneurship and dynamism and outside-the-box thinking and risk-taking, and communism kills all of those traits. So that's why the best that they have been able to do is essentially steal from us to be able to catch up in many of these fields like technology, but they're not necessarily the creators and the innovators.
And when we finally cut off the spigot, when they can't steal from us anymore, then they will be stuck because they literally have to have an original piece of new technology or a new idea from America to take it apart and then back engineer it to make their own thing. They can't do it on their own. It's kind of stunning that we would even give them the opportunity to do that. I don't know why we don't have some mechanism for doing the manufacturing here in the United States. We're creative, we're smart, we should be on that. Benjamin Weingarten, fantastic to talk to you, senior fellow at the London Center for Public Policy Research. Thank you for being here today. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right. He was great. We'll be back with more. We'll take your calls at 866-963-2037 right after this.
What does it take to be a sports success and a team player? Here's Pro Football Hall of Fame coach Tony Dungy with today's uncommon moment.
If his career had been longer, Hall of Famer Gale Sayers might be the undisputed greatest running back of all time. He only played 4 full seasons before injury cut his career short. In 1969, his teammate and friend Brian Piccolo was diagnosed with advanced cancer. Their relationship inspired the hit TV movie Brian's Song. As he accepted the George Halas Award for Most Courageous Player that year, Sayers told the crowd they picked the wrong person. I love Brian Piccolo. Tonight, when you hit your knees to pray, please ask God to love him too. Gale Sayers was an incredible athletic talent, but even more important was his uncommon inner strength.
Tony Dungy, best-selling author of Quiet Strength and the Uncommon book series. Discover more at CoachDungy.com.
J. Warner Wallace.
I think we're blessed as Christians that we don't believe something that's not rooted in history. We believe something that had to actually occur. As Paul said, if the resurrection didn't actually occur in history, we're to be pitied. And that's the beautiful thing about Christianity, is it's something you can actually investigate. I'm grateful for that, because as an investigator, that's exactly how I came to faith.
The Marriage, Family, and Life Conference is coming June 20th through 22nd. Learn more and register at urbanfamilytalk.com. Navigating through life can be like piloting a ship. Equipped with Chris Brooks is navigating through the culture with the lens of a biblical worldview.
So I know what it's like to go through seasons of change, but I also know what it's like, and I can say to you, God is faithful. Sometimes God has to allow discomfort to come to push us out so that we can embrace the new thing that God wants to do.
Equipped with Chris Brooks, weekdays at noon Central on Urban Family Talk.
I'm Chad Pergram with the Speaker's Lobby. The Senate is likely to sync up with the House soon and vote to overturn President Trump's national emergency declaration for the border. That likely tees up Mr. Trump's first ever veto of legislation. Veto is Latin for I forbid. Article 1, Section 7 of the Constitution basically says if the president likes a bill, he can sign it. If he doesn't, he can veto it and send the legislation back to Capitol Hill. Alexander Hamilton engineered the idea of a presidential veto, writing in Federalist Paper number 73. Hamilton argued in favor of the veto, saying the president may periodically need to hold Congress in check. But the founders wanted Congress to have one last chance to go over the head of the executive. That's the veto override. Congress never overrode a single veto until 1845. President John Tyler holds the ignominious distinction of becoming the first president to have his veto overridden. Presidents have only vetoed legislation 2,500 times in U.S. history, and Congress has only overridden a veto 111 times. That works out to about 4%. The Speaker's Lobby, Chad Pergram, Fox News.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
I want to provide some perspective on the challenges facing our men and women at the southwest border. Though I cannot speak for all of the components of Customs and Border Protection, I can provide a firsthand account of the complex border security environment and ask for your assistance in helping our frontline men and women. In our line of work, Border Patrol agents rarely know exactly who or what they will encounter. In a single day, an agent may arrest a violent felon, encounter a large group of families and children, or rescue a drowning migrant sent into the river by smugglers. Of those we encounter, we don't know what condition they are in or what their intentions may be when they get here. Less than 2 weeks ago, agents working near Roma, Texas, arrested a Salvadorian man after he entered the United States illegally. Record checks revealed him as an MS-13 gang member with extensive criminal history in the state of New York, who was previously deported.
Welcome back to the show, y'all. Do you hear that little squeaky pipsqueak voice I just took on there? I just get annoyed when I hear that MS-13 members who've already killed folk and then have been deported are back through the southern border. They know just as well as we do that once they get deported, it's just a matter of time before they make their way on back, because America is just like a big old open piggy bank, and they can come in here and rob, steal, and kill and do anything they want to do, which is why I'm such a huge advocate of the Second Amendment. when Americans start shooting folk back and stop just passively being slaughtered, I bet you they'll think twice about coming up in here, these MS-13 gang members. But until then, they can just come on back and kill again. What's the big deal? You know? It's totally unacceptable. We'll get to the rest of that audio in just a minute. Right now, I want to go to the phones. We have Joe in Arkansas. And if you want to call into the show, 866-963-2037, 866-963-2037. Looks like we lost him. And so if you want to call back, that's perfectly fine. We'll be happy to talk to you. 866-963-2037. So let's listen to the rest of that audio from it's Rio Grande Border Chief Karish. His name's Karish. He also talks about the migrants from Turkey and China that he's been intercepting, and that one's number 2.
People are traveling thousands of miles across hemispheres to attempt to legally enter the United States using the same pathways as Central Americans. Contrast this incoming tide of migrants with our limited resources and infrastructure at the southwest border, particularly in the Rio Grande Valley and Tucson sectors.
So this is every single time we discuss this and we listen to audio and, the testimony of these Border Patrol agents, they always point to the fact that these people are coming in and it's not, as President Trump said, they're not sending their best people. These aren't the best people these countries have. These are the ones who they don't have any way of doing anything lawfully in their own country, or they're already criminals there. And so they're coming here to spread a little bit of criminality our way. And as I've said before, we're all full up on crazy and criminals. We have plenty of homegrown American crazies and criminals without them sending theirs over here to do harm to us. We just don't need it. All right, let's go back to the phones. We have Shannon. Hey, Shannon, thanks for calling the show today.
Hello, Miss Stacy. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. You asked a question earlier about American manufacturing and why we don't keep our manufacturing here. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, they like the cheap labor. If corporate America would fall out of love with cheap labor, and pay American workers, then we could keep our manufacturing, keep our jobs, keep our, so we don't send our things over there for them to reverse engineer and try to sell their cheap knockoffs here.
I know what you're saying, Shannon, but some of the issues that we've had with our labor force here in this country is once our labor force is unionized, then the idea that you can get paid, $18 an hour for working in a screw factory, it's not maintainable. And I know when you say cheap labor, we're talking about people who are working for $1 an hour or $2.50 an hour making screws. But there's also the capability. And we've talked about this on the show before, how Tim Cook, who used to be the CEO of Apple, he talked about how in the United States, we can't create 100,000 MacBook Pro screws, the teeny tiny screws that are needed to screw MacBook Pros together. We can't create those in 3 or 4 days, where in China, because it's a communist nation and the people are really slaves, they can say, I'll mobilize a 24-hour, 3-shift, 24-hour-a-day operation for you in a couple of my manufacturing plants, and I can get you 100,000 of those tiny screws in 4 days. And so the difference in that is, the Apple as a corporation wants to bring something to market in this really compressed time frame, where in the United States they have to plan it out and it takes a lot longer to get it done because, we don't have a ton of factories doing shift work anymore. We don't have a ton of factories, period. And when we did, it was still, as you said, people need to be paid a living wage here. In China, they don't. So it's almost like the difference between eating fruit and people who prefer to eat, sugary sweets made with white sugar and white flour. You get a much faster payback or result when you eat the piece of cake than you do an apple or a pineapple. The apple and the pineapple are good for you and they still taste sweet, but if you want that ultra sugary experience, you have to go for the cake or whatever that's made with the sugar and the white flour. It's not good for you, but it's what you want. And that is what manufacturers in this country, companies in this country want, that experience that they can only get in China. We have to find a way to get a happy middle ground, or they're stealing us blind, and it's just crazy. Ray in Texas. Hey, Ray. Thanks for calling the show.
Hi.
Hi.
I've worked in, I've been in the military, and then I've worked here.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. I watched President Trump on the border, and he asked the commanders down there to tell about all the different people they're bringing in. But one thing I never hear is what they're bringing with them. They're bringing weapons, and they're bringing some things that America doesn't want to know about, and they're not telling about. They're things that will take down a plane. I mean, crazy stuff. And every other country has sovereignty over their border. They have their sovereign border. And, look at the other side of it. If, let's say, some parent wants to take their child away from their spouse and the divorce custody, where do they run to? Something like that. Don't they have a right to, criminals or felons from the United States crossing across their border, too? I mean, they're a sovereign nation as well. No other country lets people come in the south border like we do.
Yeah, it's true. It's unique to our country, and people feel like we have to because we're too rich and we have too much, and we should be forced to share it with people who are coming in the country illegally. Thanks, Ray, for excellent comments. Joe in Arkansas, thanks for calling the show today.
Yeah, thank you, Stacy. I wanted to comment on what I heard you say about how you don't know why we don't have the mechanism to manufacture smartphones and, all this cutting-edge technology in this country. And I think it's because our leaders have embraced this false theory of free trade that says that if we can get things cheaper from other countries, then we're better off buying those things from them. But when we do that, I think the disadvantage, I think what we lose working under that theory outweighs what we gain, because then when we buy these things from other countries, the money drains out of the country, and we don't have the circulation of the money inside the country that we would have if we produced those things there. We lose the jobs in the industry in this country that we would have had if we produced those things there. And most important, we lose the skills and the know-how and the knowledgeable and skilled people, that know how to make those things in this country, so that we lose the edge in making the innovative developments that are going to take us into the future, that are going to make us the leaders in the future by buying those things from other countries. Because wherever they're actually producing those things, that's where the people are going to have the skills and the know-how to innovate for the developments in that field. So I think we lose a lot more than we gain from following this theory of free trade. And as far as finding the happy medium that you were just talking about, I think we would have that if we would have tariffs on foreign products, on imported products that would make them more expensive than the same products produced in this country. And then if we would maintain a really good free enterprise system inside this country, we'd have plenty of competition amongst the American companies inside the country to keep production, up to date and innovative and efficient.
You're right. You're absolutely right. But you know what? There are too many liberals out there who have power, real power, who every time I say something even slightly as good as what you just said, the response has been, well, that's protectionism and that never works. I've also been told you just want to shut out all of the other nations, and closing yourself off will make us like China was, where China was closed off, and look at that, stunted their development. They were the most developed nation. They closed themselves off from free trade, and then they became the least developed nation. And I get it. We need to have interactions, but having the system that you just described doesn't mean we don't interact with foreign countries. It just means we say in our country, in order to make sure that, because what you said is so true, whoever is at the screw factory, that they didn't used to be able to turn out 100,000 screws in 4 days. Some business owner from America said, I need to be able to get this many of this whatever widget made in this many days. And they put the demand on them. And so they created a mechanism by which they could mobilize the employees and get it done. We did that. It was called World War II. Remember, all the women were in the factories making the bombs and putting together the machine parts to actually put the plane on the planes, like plane parts and all that. We did that out of necessity. If we had outsourced that, another nation would have been able to do it. We wouldn't have been able to do it. And that is what you're talking about, which is just fantastic. Thank you for the comment. It's excellent. Gerald in L.A., hey, thanks for calling the show today. Louisiana, I think?
Stacy, yeah. Opelousas, Louisiana.
All right.
Cajun country. Hello,
Thanks
Stacy.
for calling.
Okay, I have a number. You're welcome. Thank you for being on the air. Thank all of y'all. Okay, the owners of companies I have a total overview. The owners of companies want to save money, so they outsource our stuff.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. The love of money is the root of all evil. Okay, what does Nancy Pelosi think when AOC and all them get in office and start ruling? Does she think she's going to be impervious to the... Does she think AOC and them are going to leave her alone? This rich white woman with her mansions? I don't think so.
No.
And the border people, the same thing. The border people come and look. I've heard in the news, you know, they had a few of the immigrants run over people, and our Americans who were born here are mourning their people. Another thing, I just called Walmart, and now this, God might be using, and I made this observation, God might be using this to get me to stop going to Walmart.
I'm telling you, because I already had to give up Target.
Responsible.
Yeah, but I'm willing to do it. See, I feel like in America today, with all the different options, we have alternatives. So Walmart is convenient and the prices are great, but I don't need my milk or my butter and eggs to be that cheap. I can pay a little bit more for that and not give the money to Walmart. And that's, I think, the point on all of this. You just struck an amazing chord, Geraldine. The chord on all of this is we keep saying we need the cheap manufacturing, but do we really? At our stage of development as a culture, does it matter if a six-pack of undershirts is $9.99 or $14.99? You might say, well, a family in poverty might matter to them, but we have a social safety net here, where most people in poverty, if they get all the benefits that they're entitled to, their median income is like $50,000 a year. Every state in the nation has these programs. So is it more important to pay $6 less for a package of T-shirts that's made in China, or to have them made here in the U.S., and instead of buying my husband 4 of those packs of T-shirts, I buy him 2 packs, and, we a little more careful with how we treat them in the wash so they last longer, so we can have our national sovereignty and have our ideas protected. And it's that way with everything. A cheaper car, cheaper everything. Now, that means the cost of living goes up a little bit. It means you have, instead of having, 50 T-shirts in your drawer or 30 T-shirts, you have 10. But do you need 50 or 30 T-shirts? Do you need, I got a closet full of clothes at all different sizes where I lose weight, I gain weight. Do I need to do that? Do I need all those clothes? Do I need all those shoes? Even the boots, y'all. I know this is cutting close to home now when I start talking about how many cowgirl boots, but do I need them all? This isn't about need. It's about us saying everything has to be dirt cheap. And the exchange for that is, look what we have. Geraldine pointed out, we have the people coming over the border killing our people. We have the companies, and especially the Chinese government, stealing our actual ideas and creating knockoffs, which basically decreases the market value of Apple and all these other companies that have had their ideas stolen. So the question is, how much are we willing to give away to keep having the dirt cheap American lifestyle? We don't need it to be this cheap. It can be a little hair more expensive and the stuff be made here in America by Americans. And then we have people to hold accountable when stuff falls apart, when we don't like the way it's operating, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's time for us to decide if we want to make that trade. I'm willing to, the hardest for me was letting go of Target. It was hard. You guys might remember me talking about it on the radio, how hard it was. It was so ridiculously hard to stop shopping there. But I did it because I believe, I'll never forget the day our daughter was trying on a dress in the dressing room and a man walked out. And I ran in there and I was like, did you see a man? And she was like, no, I didn't see anybody. And that was the last time we were there. God bless you. We'll have more for you tomorrow right here on Stacy on the Right.
Being there is half the battle. 1milliondads.com exists to help Christian fathers to be present and intentional in the lives of their children. Our hope is to wake up the fearsome wonder that is the mighty man of God. and restore him to his role as leader, teacher, and counselor. Visit 1milliondads.com. 1milliondads.com.
Truth, wisdom, empowered urban family talk. A ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. At least 2 Hollywood actresses are among 50 people facing federal charges in connection to a nationwide college entrance and recruiting cheating scheme.
Desperate Housewives star Felicity Huffman and Full House star Lori Loughlin included in the indictment unsealed by federal prosecutors in Boston. Allegedly, they're part of a group of parents who have paid out over $25 million combined to a California man by the name of William Singer, all aimed at getting kids into places like Yale, Georgetown, Wake Forest, and the University of Texas. Loughlin is accused of, along with her husband, paying $500,000, part of which prosecutors say eventually made its way to a crew coach at USC to make it appear as though her daughters were going to be part of the crew team, even though they didn't participate. Huffman's charged with making an illegal payment to help out her oldest daughter's test scores. James Flippin, NBC News Radio.
The head of a pro-Israel ministry says Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is a narcissist whose oversized influence in Congress has gone to her head. Chad Groening has more.
Last week, the House attempted to pass a resolution rebuking radical Minnesota Congresswoman Ilhan Omar for her anti-Semitic comments, but the final version was watered down and didn't even mention Omar by name, after avowed socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and other far-left members said it wasn't fair to single her out. Despite being a freshman, Ocasio-Cortez has become a force to be reckoned with in the Democratic Party. In fact, she warned moderate Democrats that they were putting themselves on a list for voting with Republicans on a legislative amendment. She has threatened to get progressive candidates to challenge them in the 2020 Democratic primaries. Lori Cardozo-Moore is founder of Proclaiming Justice to the Nations. She says all Americans should be frightened by her comment.
As soon as I heard her make that statement, you know what I thought of? Hitler's hit list. He had a list of people that he took out as soon as he took over the Reichstag. And then he had his Jewish list, his list of Jews, and he maintained a list as he brought them in. No, Ocasio-Cortez, you're not going to threaten Americans with a list.
And Cardozo-Moore says Americans don't want Ocasio-Cortez's socialism either.
If this is the attitude and she thinks that's what America is about, that we're a socialist country, she is completely ignorant and wrong. She's obviously a narcissist. This has gone to her head.
I'm Chad Groening.
Meanwhile, a group of young Jewish millennials is asking their peers to leave the Democratic Party.
The group has launched a grassroots effort called Jexodus. The Jexodus website says they're tired of living in bondage to leftist politics. According to the site, they, quote, reject the hypocrisy, anti-Americanism, and anti-Semitism of the rising far left. In urging young people to leave the party, they say, quote, we'd rather spend 40 years wandering in the desert than belong to a party that welcomes Jew haters. Lisa Z, NBC News Radio.
Grieving family members are demanding answers, claiming a funeral home in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, displayed the wrong body at the wake of Norma Newman this past weekend. Nicole Ninsalata of Fox TV affiliate WSVN reports.
I went up to view her body. I said, no, this is not my sister.
They were certain, they say, because something was missing.
We asked them about the mole on our aunt's face. Mm-hmm. They said that they covered it up with makeup.
Other physical characteristics, they say, just didn't add up.
That lady is not my grandmother. At this point, we don't know where my aunt's body is.
The family says funeral home employees acknowledged something was wrong.
It's very hard. We all need closure from it.
7 News did speak to another family who had the funeral of their loved one earlier this month. They have reason to believe that that body may have been that of Norma Newman.
Ireland and France are the latest 2 countries to ground all Boeing 737 MAX jetliners after the crash of an Ethiopian plane on Sunday. NBC's Tom Costello has the latest.
France just now confirming that if France does that and the UK does it, you might expect that the entire EU will do that. This follows Australia as well as Indonesia and China and a host of other countries.
The MAX 8 crashed just after takeoff in Ethiopia, killing all 157 people, including 8 Americans. For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Chris Brooks.
We cannot underestimate the responsibility of evangelism. That is why shows like this, Equipped, which is committed to equipping you every day to live, share, and defend your faith, are extremely important, because anyone who does not confess Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior is outside of God's saving grace.
Equipped. Weekdays at noon Central on Urban Family Talk. She's sharp, pointed, and insightful. This is Stacy on the Right on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
The president's going to make sure whatever deal we get is in our best interest, that it's fair and reciprocal trade, that it protects our intellectual property, and that it actually has safeguards to make sure that the Chinese follow through with whatever commitments that they make.
Federal resources and frontline defenders are overwhelmed at the southern border. In the fiscal year 2020 budget, provides sizable funding of an $8.6 billion for full completion of the wall and other border security resources.
And now, Stacy Washington.
Welcome back to the program. Thanks for sticking around for hour two. We actually have another fantastic guest for you. We're going to be chatting with Tina Marie Griffin from Counterculture Mom. She is going to come on and talk to us about YouTube's new offering. It's called YouTube Kids, and she's got a problem with it. And so Tina Marie Griffin and I met at actually at a friend of mine's house here in St. Louis at that Tucker Carlson reception. Y'all remember that, don't you? So Tina Marie Griffin was one of the speakers at the conference that Tucker Carlson also spoke at. And so she had kind of automatic entrance into that wonderful, fancy shindig at my friend's house. And she and I'd never met. Now, Tina Marie Griffin has been on other programs here on the network. And she's done a lot of work. She used to actually work in Hollywood herself as an actress. And she's now a mom of, I think, 3 kids. She homeschools them. And they have a really great life down in Nashville, Tennessee. But one of the things that she's really concerned with still, that she still works on, is culture for children and families. So she'll be joining us. We have some callers still. I'm so glad you held on, caller. Alyssa in Oklahoma, thank you for holding on. And what's your comment?
Hi, Miss Stacy. I just want to thank you for your comment and your show. It is just extremely informative, and I just love that it's faith-based and how much you love God and how much you love the United States.
Oh, thank
my
you.
comment is, yes, ma'am. My comment is, I was in the armed forces, and I was stationed in Turkey overseas.
Oh, thank you for your service.
I saw yes, ma'am. There's a huge difference the way criminals are treated in Turkey than they are treated in the United States. If someone murders someone over there, they are executed. And I just feel like there's so many loopholes in our justice system that if the crime fit the punishment in the United States, people wouldn't be coming to America feeling like they have free will to have power over other people's lives.
Oh, I see what you're saying. If you were a foreigner and you came here and the punishment for killing someone in this country was death, then you wouldn't just nonchalantly run somebody over and then, get a lawyer and get it argued down like that guy did. He shot Kate Steinle. Then he lied about it and said it was an accident. His lawyer helped him get off with like almost no time, like a manslaughter charge. He should have been put to death for killing her. I agree.
That's right. Exactly. Because over in Turkey, if people steal, their fingers or hands are removed. You cut down a lot of shoplifting and things like that. I mean, it's ridiculous how people get out of heinous crimes that are committed all over the United States, even the world. But their crime rate in China is really low because they don't tolerate that.
Well, it's also low in China because you could just get accused of a crime. They don't have good due process there, and you could get hauled off and your whole family could get hauled off. So in that instance, you're going to not only obey the law, you're going to be very careful because your crimes can be used to hurt your whole family. So, I like the fact that in the United States, you're innocent until proven guilty and we have due process. But I do think the pendulum has swung too far to the other side. I don't agree with lopping off people's hands for stealing, but I think if the punishment was immediate and quick and swift, and if people who killed people were killed themselves, like what the death penalty is supposed to be, then it would be more effective. And the answer is that we have to put people in charge who are godly, who will, regardless of how popular it makes them or how it makes them feel, will do things correctly, will do the right thing. If we were to elect people like that, we would have less of this going on. John in Mississippi, thank you for calling the show today.
How you doing, Tracy?
Doing good.
How are you? You said something earlier. I think it is that instead of Walmart, I actually have two comments, but I'm going to do this one first. I think is that, see, with Walmart, we also have Aldi's, we got Kroger, we got Dollar Tree, we got Family Dollar, Dollar General. You can replace them. The other thing is, the other comment I have is Miss Ocasio-Cortez. She says she's going to start putting some people on a list. Now, remember this thing, if you don't remember nothing else. Remember Schindler's List?
Mm-hmm.
That's the spirit that she's operating under. She's making lists, and she's being used just like Hitler.
Oh, yeah. She's a figurehead. We had Magdalene Rose on the program to talk about that. And what was so interesting about there's since Magdalene Rose is on the show, she's done another couple of things. Like there have been another couple of exposés on AOC about how, first of all, she's essentially an actress, and the real brains behind her is that campaign manager. But there's also an organization that put her and a bunch of other people up, and she was the only one who really won. But they won big with her because even though her district is tiny and it only took 15,000 people to put her in Congress, she's able to exert a lot of force, and she's standing up to Nancy Pelosi, which I never thought I would have a problem with someone standing up to Nancy, but I always think of it as someone standing up to her from a godly perspective. And this woman is really, truly demonic. Like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Tlaib, the other one, they have a demonic influence on the political sphere, and we have to pray against that. We can't forget that the warfare that we wage, we're waging it in the prayer closet. That's where we're getting that done. And then afterwards, you vote. Afterwards, you exercise your rights. You call in. You do whatever you're going to do. Stephen in Arkansas. Thanks for calling the show today.
Arkansas, yes.
Mm-hmm.
You was talking about people boycotting, kind of, sort of, on Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
Well, me and some friends down here are doing the best we can. We've got a little group that gets together for prayer and have our own little church get-together in the house. But we live on like under $800 a month. And there's just some things you have to have that you've got to find the cheapest for, because now we got bills like everybody else, you know, and $800 don't go very far.
No, it doesn't.
It's just, you know, you just have to, and they count on that, you know.
So what are you able to do instead of like, so you kind of, you're stuck with Walmart because that's a place that's going to provide that lowest price. So you guys are praying about the situation.
We spend a little more than we should because we've been to buying our food at a local little grocery store, a little town, and but every once in a while you got to have shoes or boots and some clothes and stuff. And Walmart's just beats their prices so bad that, you know, we really can't afford to just shut them off. We want to.
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
You know, you got to eat.
Well, and so in your case, obviously, you're going to have to do what works for your budget. And I still think we can get the job done with Walmart. I think we can exert pressure. I think they are more open to hearing from us than Target was, just because of the origins of the Walmart. But I don't know how far away from the original founders' goals and aspirations the Walmart leadership has strayed. But I do think there's something that we can do about it. And God bless you. I think you should, continue to do what works for your budget, and leave this particular fight to us. But you're doing the most important thing, which is you said y'all get together and you pray, and you're having church and you're exerting that influence, which is the most important one. And so I thank you for that, Stephen. I appreciate that call. Y'all can all go to the petition, which is at afr.net. Go to afr.net and sign the petition. That is what our leadership uses, those numbers of people who've signed the petition, to talk to Walmart and say, look, this is how many people we have who are concerned about this issue. And that speaks volumes to them when they see those numbers. They know that they have a certain, their service, the cheap goods and the high quality, cheaply priced products that they sell. They know that there's a segment of our population that really appreciates what they're putting down. They don't want to alienate them. And I do think we have an option here to make a change with Walmart. I do. I absolutely do. AFA.net. It's over at AFA.net. So remember, AFA is American Family Association, and then AFR is American Family Radio. So same stuff, right? So if you go to AFA.net, I'm going there right now. The petition is here. Walmart launches gay dating ad. It's right in the center panel. Just click on it to sign the petition. I'm going to go to AFR and see if they have it over there too. I just assumed it was over at AFR because we talk about it on the radio. On AFR, let's see. We have the mailing list, all the radio shows, the store. Okay, yeah. You guys go to AFA.net to sign the petition. AFA.net. Thank you for that, Renee. Thank you for putting that in the comments. So right now I want to listen to Kudlow. He says that President Trump is sending a tough budget to Congress. Now, I want just for 5 seconds, can we just sit here for a second and marinate on the fact that the budget deficit, it's even bigger than ever before. And now Democrats care about it because there's a Republican in office and they can blame him for something. They never cared about Obama doubling the deficit. So what I want you to do is, we have to think about this from the perspective of, we don't care who's in office. We want the deficit to go down. We're not seeing that happen. We do want to hold the president accountable, but is he really solely responsible for it? Or is there someone called the House of Representatives who control the purse strings who are really ultimately making the decisions here? And the president just has to either sign the legislation or veto it. Here's Kudlow in number 3.
If you want to deal with budget deficits, you've got rapid growth, which means keep the tax cuts in place. We believe the 3% growth rate of 2018 will continue in 2019 and beyond 2020 and so forth. I think the other element is always to limit spending. And the president is proposing roughly a 5% across-the-board reduction in domestic spending accounts. It will be a tough budget. We're going to do our own caps this year, and I think it's long overdue. Some of these recent budget deals have not been favorable towards spending. So I think it's exactly the right prescription. I would just say that the whole issue of the wall and border security is of paramount importance. We have a crisis down there. I think the president has made that case very effectively. It's a crisis of economics. It's a crisis of crime and drugs. It's a crisis of humanity. We have to be much tougher and have more constructive immigration policy, which we will be developing over a period of time. So, yes, he's going to stay with his wall, and he's going to stay with the border security thing. I think it's essential.
So why do reporters keep acting like because of opposition, the president's going to be like, well, guess I can't get the border wall done. I guess I'm just going to have to leave that and go on back to my business. Why would he do that? And they act like it's a game. The reporters are like, well, you've been thwarted at every turn. Will you now give up on your useless quest to attain border security for America? And then they put the mic in his face, or one of his representatives. And they're like, no, he's going to keep working on that. Why? Why is he going to do that? Because he promised. He said he was going to do it. So he's going to keep working on it. And if it doesn't happen right away, so be it. If it does, so be it. But he's not going to stop working on it. It's the same way they are about making abortion on demand, the law of the land, and getting, even the youngest of children to have abortions. That's their goal. They won't stop working on that. Why should the president stop working on what he's doing? And so as we're going out of this segment, I just want to make a comment about it just has been hitting me from every side, it's sororities and fraternities. And I know a lot of people are in academic sororities and fraternities, and so especially the ones that you're doing that because it's a part of your work, professional sororities and so on and so forth. But I just want to caution all of us when we have these things that we're doing that we really enjoy, does it come in place of or take precedence over our service to God? Just a question I'm asking. When we get back, we'll have Tina Marie Griffin. Stay there.
Here's Walker Wildman for Redeem Clean Laundry Products.
Not only do you get a great product and you get to obviously clean your clothes, get the stains out and use a multi-surface cleaner to clean your countertops and use the dryer sheets. You're doing all of this and the money's going to support the work of American Family Association.
Redeem Clean Laundry Products were developed by AFA supporters Len Ingram and Jim Duncan to assist in funding the mission of the American Family Association. Redeem Clean products work as well as or better than other products on the market. They're environmentally safe, biodegradable, and they're made right here in the United States.
The great thing about Redeem Clean is not only is the product great, but it goes to support a great cause, and that is the work of American Family Association.
For clean laundry and a cleaner society, it's Redeem Clean. Visit redeemclean.afastore.net.
This is Viewpoints with Kirby Anderson.
Is it possible that sometime in the future the U.S. Senate will end the filibuster? When he was Senate Majority Leader, Harry Reid ended the filibuster for judicial nominees. That was done to help President Obama get nominees through the Senate confirmation. Now it is helping President Trump with his nominees. David French is concerned that Democrats might want to end the filibuster in the future, and that could break American politics. He raises this question because of an op-ed in the New York Times that has now led to other editorials and commentaries. The argument is simple. Even if Democrats elect a president, and even if they're able to control both the House and the Senate, they will never pass controversial legislation like the Green New Deal. We are a divided country. The parties are polarized. Major pieces of legislation, especially controversial pieces of legislation, will not make it through the U.S. Senate as long as a 60-vote requirement remains. That's why many are ready to end the filibuster. They look at the facts and say, step on the gas. David French looks at the same facts and says, tap the brakes. Now, I've always had a problem with the filibuster because it allows a minority to prevent the implementation of the majority. A majority of senators, as many as 59, cannot get legislation passed if 41 senators do not vote for cloture, which would end debate and allow a vote on the bill. On the other hand, I see the value of keeping the filibuster. A Democrat Congress passed the Affordable Care Act without one Republican vote when the filibuster was in place. Imagine the legislation that might fly through the Senate if the Democratic leadership ended the filibuster. It's worth having this discussion now, and it's worth seeing whether ending the filibuster makes it into the Democratic platform in 2020. We need to keep the Senate filibuster. I'm Kirby Anderson, and that's my point of view.
Take Kirby and the Point of View team with you on the go with the Point of View app. Search for Point of View Radio at the Apple or Google Play stores.
You can download episodes of Stacy on the Right from the podcast page on AFR.net or UrbanFamilyTalk.com. Now, back to the show on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Welcome back to the program. Thank you for being here today. You can find out more at American Family Radio's radio site, AFR.net. You can also go to UrbanFamilyTalk.com, and you can go to StacyOnTheRight.com. Yes, so let's now go to our next guest. It's Tina Marie Griffin, counterculture mom. She and I met at Shannon's house here in St. Louis, and we had the best time talking. She's tall, like me, but she's model thin, which is awesome, and she's beautiful. In addition to all those attributes, which I enjoy, she's brilliant, so smart, and so dead on with her commentary about where we are right now. And she's waging that war from home, homeschooling her kids, and doing a radio program out of Nashville. Tina Marie Griffin, thanks for joining the show today.
Hey, thank you for having me. Yeah, we're either on the ground schooling our kids or we're up in the air trying to share the truth next to the people on the plane. It's just a nonstop job, but we love it, don't we?
I love it. When you sit next to people on the plane, they're in for a treat, right?
Yeah, that's about it, especially if you're on one side and I'm on the other.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this YouTube Kids thing. So first of all, if your kids are smaller, YouTube is a landmine. It's like, you let them on there, and they've cleaned it up a lot with the suggested videos, like the videos on the side that show up when you watch one thing. But invariably, they can't do it all because there are more evil people out there than they have moderators. And new content is constantly being put up there that is just disgusting, depraved, and really inappropriate for kids. So they've launched something called YouTube Kids. So it sounds on its face like it should be great, a safe place for kids to go, an alternative to the Wild Wild West atmosphere of regular YouTube. What's the problem with it?
Well, the major problem that's going on with YouTube Kids, and here as we're talking, my phone's blowing up. Probably some parents that are up in arms with something else that just happened today. I need to have 5 people on board here help me out. YouTube Kids, yes, used to be safe. It was something I promoted for parents. They want to make sure that their kids, they have 30 minutes to do something for fun and jump on YouTube or watch some videos, not a big deal. I used to have playlists, and I say used to because I had to erase everything for my 2 younger girls off of YouTube Kids because of some recent junk that was just discovered in the last year. The most recent video, last couple of weeks, showed a clip of a guy that is basically has millions of different followers. I think his name's Freddie. It goes by first name of Freddie. And he is encouraging kids in the middle of a kid's cartoon, mind you, Stacy. So they're watching a cartoon. He pops on for a couple of seconds in there and says, remember, kids, as he takes his hand as if he's slicing his wrist, slice sideways to get attention, but all the way down your arm to get the job done. End it. And that's what he's telling our 5, 6, 7-year-old kids, showing them and telling them how they can commit suicide by doing some incisions on their arm, via cutting.
Well, why? Why did he do that?
I have no idea what his main intention is besides trying to inflict harm with children. But this stuff is happening on an escalating rise even in our TV shows. So to see it with teens and tweens, very alarming. To see it now with toddlers, it blows my mind that this guy even has that many million followers. It's very disturbing to me. And the bummer is, like you said, there is no 100% safe protection set up or settings that are available for parents when it comes to YouTube, even kids, to block this kind of content. It pops up unannounced in the middle of kids' cartoons. You don't know what's going to be on there. You watch a cartoon the first time, it looks clean, safe, sure, go ahead and watch it for half an hour. And then, boom, you'll have this thing surprise the kids halfway to the cartoon. Problem is, most of the parents don't catch it in time. They're not watching the whole time their children are watching these 30-minute programs on YouTube. So the kids are exposed to this junk with the parents being unaware. It's just that one mom happened to be looking over her son's shoulder for this 30-second span of time and noticed that commercial, took screenshots, sent it into YouTube, and some of these that he's pumped out before with suicide and cutting took 8 months for YouTube to actually take off of their channel.
Because they're too busy monitoring me for saying things like homosexual instead of gay and, illegal alien instead of immigrant. And my favorite, being allowed to say someone who's trans is actually like mentally ill, like we used to believe and used to be a part of our regular psychiatric practice that trans people were mentally ill. They're too busy monitoring conservatives for that kind of talk to monitor these other really popular shows for, because what you're describing is it's malpractice. It's what would be considered like if that were on a regular television station, they'd get sued. And so what is your recommendation to parents? I mean, for me, this comes at a time where my kids are teenagers and they're already watching YouTube, and they're all at the age where I really talk to them more about being obedient to God and listening to the Holy Spirit and not consuming content that they would be ashamed to have me see over their, if I walk in and I see it over their shoulder, would they try to hide it from me? Because I'm trying to teach them to police themselves because they're going to be leaving home soon. But when your kids are teeny tiny, it's our responsibility as moms to make sure that they don't consume this stuff. It is our job. And if we fall down on the job and our kids see this stuff, it's our fault. And so that's why you take it so seriously, which I'm glad of. But what are you recommending to parents about this kid YouTube and all of this online content?
I think the biggest thing, and I want to make a quick correction, it's not Freddie, it's Frank, just because you should see see how many pop culture alerts I have in my head every single day. I have probably 30 of them right now I could talk about that are alarming that parents need to know about at this minute. The guy's name is Filthy Frank, and he has 6.2 million subscribers, calls himself the, quote, embodiment of everything a person should not be, end quote. Well, that's the problem. We have too many people showing our kids what they shouldn't be, and yet kids are following that, emulating that, doing it, and we have kids that are dead with a disease, depressed, suicidal, cutting, you name it. The biggest thing I suggest for parents today, especially with the onslaught of the attack through entertainment, is not that I want to go straight to a book, but it's the best book I've ever read from Matt McKee, and it's called Parent Chat. It's available on my source at counterculturemom.com. I think it's $12, $10, and it's a great 2-hour read because in it, he divides up, depending on how old your kids are, what tech gadgets are give great godly advice should be allowed for each of those age parameters, because sometimes we think, a 5-year-old can easily handle the iPad. Not any longer, not in general. I mean, I have a 5-year-old daughter who has to ask me permission to use it. She only gets on 15 to 20 minutes when she is on it, and I want to say a day, but she's not even on it every day. So I even not only guard the content there on it, be very specific with the apps that are on there. I have a free parent media guide, which I'll explain in a minute for your listeners. That I help guide them through what apps are safe, what are not. But know what apps are on your tech gadgets for your kids. Check out this book, Parent Chat, because it walks you through, are they ready for a cell phone? Are they ready for an iPad? If so, how do you set up the parameters on both of those tech gadgets to choose how long they can be on every day? Circle device. I have a great discount for the Circle device, which helps set up for parents on the free parent media guide. You click on the Circle device link. It takes you right to the page to order it. Phenomenal device where parents can have the power back in their hands and choose, okay, for my 10-year-old son, Jake, he can be on it for an hour a day, and these are the different spots he can go to and navigate on his own. I feel safe. I've previewed it. He's good. These are the places that I'm blocking that he cannot have access to. And then explain to your kids that it's not as though you don't trust them. You just don't trust anybody else. And give horror stories, if you need to, of kids that found themselves kidnapped or getting a chat from a predator and it turned into a whole big scam. I have videos on my website, counterculturemom.com, that parents can go to and watch this take place so their kids know why they want to make sure that they keep them safe so there's no battle between the child and the parent. This also was talked about in that Parent Chat book. I love the conversation starters. And then the Circle device also allows you to set up, let's say your 5-year-old daughter or son, you're allowing them to be on for 20, 30 minutes, and they have different type of apps to let them be on according to their age-appropriate range. I love the Circle device because it allows you to do that. It also gives you the chance to say, we're not going to have any tech gadgets on from 6 to 8. That's family time, eating time, bonding time with the family. And let's say you shut off the Circle device shuts off automatically all tech gadgets at 9 at night, so you don't have horror stories that I hear every day traveling America and talking to parents of how their kids stay up every single night, all night long till 3 or 4 in the morning, on Snapchat, on Facebook, on Twitter, all these different places, Choices game, you name it, which is horrible for the content itself, where they're going on and staying up till 3 in the morning and not able to function at school the next day. So the Circle device, the Parent Chat book, and then, of course, having conversations with their kids to help teach them why you want to have them only on for a certain amount of days, and then have them have play dates where they're outside in the yard. My son and both of my boys today after lunch went out for an hour and played baseball. My son's going to be starring pitcher on the team this year. I'm totally stoked. But I have them outside, fresh air, and moving around. And, I don't want my kids to be obese. So many kids are obese today because they're on the couch watching entertainment or playing video games. So we just have to go back to being the parent, giving our kids some freedoms outdoors to have fun, have neighbors over, and have a good time, and be active, join sports, join dance, and not be babysat by tech gadgets and the content on the tech gadgets. That would be my top parenting advice right now. All coming back to the pre-parent media guide. Stacy, if they text the word guide, GUIDE, the number 444999, they will get, within a minute in their inbox, once they respond with their email, my free parent media guide, 4 pages filled on how to do a pop culture purge in their home and get the thousands of positive entertainment options in their home to replace it. And I guarantee you, Stacy, I've had parents all the time email me in, call me, say they notice a huge difference and within a couple days of applying the tips I have in that guide, because our kids are feeding on positive content rather than the negative, which completely gives them a whole positive outlook on life and their feelings and their health, everything.
Okay, wait. So what's the number that they text to again?
Yes, they text the word guide. The number 444-999.
444-999. Okay, so and then the counterculturemom.com is the website that people can go to get the resources that you just described. So fantastic breakdown. You just did that so quickly. And I encourage people, share the podcast. Share this with someone you know. If you've been to coffee with girlfriends or mom's night and people are talking about how they can't control their kids with their devices, talk to them. Share this interview with them. This is how you can get the information out there and we can fight back. The other thing I recommend is for your bigger kids, it's that and the circle device. I remember hearing about it, and then of course it just slipped out of my like lexicon of things. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. We got to get that over here. We have a rule that so you can't take your phone. You can take it upstairs to listen to your music while you're in the shower. Play the music in your bathroom, but it has to be on the charging station all night long. So when you go to bed, we do that. So now, the other thing that you're talking about, that circle device where it cuts the internet off, we need that here, because what happens is if I'm on my phone doing whatever I'm doing, then I don't notice that the kids are on their phones doing whatever they're doing. And it stretches from 30 minutes to, you can sit there for a couple of hours just looking at Pinterest. That's what I find myself doing. I want to unplug from politics. So I'll get on Pinterest and I'll start off looking at cowgirl boots or clogs. And before I know it, I'm looking at home decor, shabby chic, whatever. And I've been on there for an hour. And then I'm like, ooh, I want to get up and get a cup of hot tea. And everyone in the room is staring at a tiny screen. I'm like, put these down. Let's talk. Let's, I'll grab one of the kids. Let's go to the half price books. Let's go do something. But it's a struggle because we use the devices too. The circle would make a huge difference. The other thing that I want to recommend is for teenagers right now. And we have this struggle at our house where kids are texting each other all the time, so they don't have to have each other over. Yeah. So what I did was I made my daughter have a play date over Christmas. And she was like, don't call it a play date. I said, then you're having your girls over. Does that work for you? I don't care what you call it. She texted them, and they came over, and the moms dropped them off. And I told them, I was like, you guys, you're talking to each other. If I hear silence, I'm going to come in and take these phones. I went out of the room. I heard laughing. I came back in with pizza. They were enjoying themselves. When the girls' moms came and picked them up, all the girls were smiling as they left. And the moms were like, thanks for doing this. I said, we should do this more often. Now, of course, that was Christmas. Is it March already? I have no idea. I'm like in a time warp, and it seems to be moving faster than ever.
It's March.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's such a great idea.
It is, but you got to do it. It's one of those things where if you're anything like me, you're like, well, the house isn't clean, or our dog, he's the kind of dog who has to be groomed. Look at him. He hasn't been washed in a few weeks, and he's matted. We can't have people over. Yes, you can. People don't care what your dog looks like. People don't care if your floors have been mopped the last couple of days. If there's a dust bunny there, just pick it up with your fingers and drop it in the trash and invite some people over. We've got to start doing this because our kids don't know how to talk to each other anymore.
Absolutely. You're so right on. I want to give a little piece of advice. You got to do this like weekly or monthly, girl. Like you and I are two peas in a pod here. I think the biggest thing that helped me out was sometimes I'm in a trance. I'm like, okay, wait a second. I'm giving them an hour for playtime, and they're saying, what can we do? And granted, I have 4 kids, 10 and under, so a little bit different age range here, but this could work for any kid age you got. I made a master list of activities they could do. So I'm like, I have like 35 things in that beast. So I'm like, okay, Jake, you haven't done this for a while. Try the Legos, or we have Lincoln Logs, or build a racetrack. Here's the marble deal. Because I want them to put things together to use their brain, parts of their brain they typically don't even use. Cursive writing I have them do when they're in their homeschool curriculum here that I've got. I call it Griffin Academy to make it sound cool. But, all the kids have big bins of different activities, and I wrote a whole list of things they could do that they keep switching up, so it's never the same 3 things over and over again. Sometimes you go to the iPad because it's the thing you get addicted to, and you forget that there's tons of toys, games, and puzzles right in front of your face. So
yeah, and the iPad actually has a lot of educational resources on it. You just have to go to those instead of just sitting watching the dumb YouTube videos or watching the kind of meme lord videos, which the kids like watching those. And sometimes, so I know it's not all bad because obviously the kids come over to me and they'll show me one and we'll just laugh until our eyes are like we're crying. And there's other times where my son will forward me an article and say, Mom, have you seen this? You might want to talk about this on your show. So it's not bad. It's just the way we use it. It's the way we use it. When my kids were your kids' age, Tina, I didn't have to say that. They knew if they said they were bored, I would make them clean, wash walls, wash windows. So they always had their Legos out and stuff. But now, that was before the iPad. My kids were like just on that edge. Yep. You're fantastic. The work that you're doing is God's work. You're helping parents, and I thank you for it, Tina. Thank you for coming on the show today. Let's talk again soon.
You got it. Everybody download the Counterculture Mom app today.
Do it today, guys. It's good for you. All right, Tina, talk to you again soon. We'll be right back with more.
Have you noticed how your priorities change as you grow older? They are simple and silly as children. Most of us don't even want to admit what they were in college. As a young adult, they start becoming more serious, and then your priorities completely change when you have a family. As we reach the last quarter of life, we start thinking more about our mortality and what waits for us. The problem with that is none of us are guaranteed any amount of time. Don't wait until you think you need to get serious about God. He sent His Son, Jesus Christ, to offer you forgiveness and hope for eternity. Don't ignore that gift and wait any longer to invite Jesus Christ into your life. Call 888-NEED-HIM to learn how to have a personal relationship with Jesus and take care of the biggest priority in life. That number is 888-NEED-HIM. 888-NEED-HIM.
Family is an institution set forth by God. One man and one woman for life, with the outflow being children produced by that union. It's obvious to all that there is an attack on the family in our country, and especially on fathers. Whether it's the cycle of sin that persists in our families or the pressure from our government to exclude men from being intimately involved, the strategic battle is on for the souls of men. Join us in the battle to strengthen fatherhood. UrbanFamilyTalk.com.
Bishop Vincent Matthews.
Every one of my children have gone to college, that are in college on an academic scholarship. And we taught them in our home. So reevaluate. Wherever you bought your hair or got it done, one day it's going to be out of style. But your heritage is not just for what am I going to do today. It's for your children's 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 children.
The Marriage, Family, and Life Conference is coming June 20th through the 22nd. Learn more and register at UrbanFamilyTalk.com.
This is Fox on Justice. It's a case that potentially could open a new front in the legal battles over abortion. It's a ruling by a probate court judge in Madison County, Alabama. Judge Frank Barger ruled that an aborted fetus is a person and can be named as a co-plaintiff in a wrongful death suit. The suit was brought by Ryan Majors. He claims in 2017 his girlfriend at the time got pregnant and had an abortion. She was 16. Her father says Majors pressured her to have sex. Majors says he pleaded with her to have the baby. And now he's suing the clinic where the abortion happened and the company that made the pill she took. He named the aborted fetus, identified legally as Baby Roe, as a co-plaintiff. The judge agreed. Major says he hopes that opens a legal door.
Not only me, but other fathers, other future fathers can actually pursue it as well.
Abortion rights activists call this a dangerous precedent in the growing movement toward fetal rights. They promise to keep fighting. With Fox on Justice, Hank Weinblum, Fox News.
This is Stacy on the Right with Stacy Washington on American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk.
Congress has been ignoring the president's spending reductions for the last 2 years. It's only now in our third budget that they're willing to have a conversation about the national debt. We've been trying to have it since we got to office. The president is putting forward these reductions. He's putting forward a 5% cut to non-defense discretionary spending. He's putting forward reforms to mandatory programs that are on autopilot while keeping his commitment to American seniors.
Wow. So what's important? The president has actually been offering reductions and Congress has been ignoring them. And that means the Republican-led Congress was ignoring him. You hear that? That's the sound of the swamp waving a little flag of victory saying, yeah, we beat him for 2 years and now a whole bunch of them are out of office. Do you remember that's the same group of Republicans where a ton of them decided to retire because the new Trump reality of the Republican Party wasn't something they felt they could win in. They were unable to win in that environment. And so when we're talking about what the president can and can't do, we have to remember the confines of the environment that he's operating in. The swamp is real. It is on the right as well as the left, and he's got to fight that in order to get anything done. So, there it is. Now, I want to do a little, just kind of circle around to close the loop. Last hour, I was talking about the safety net that we have here in this country and the welfare benefits that people can get per state. And this was something that I've read this many times on the radio. When I had a weekly show, I talked about this. I've talked about it a couple of times since I've been here at American Family Radio and Urban Family Talk. And, I've talked about the high numbers of Americans at one point under the Obama administration who were unemployed and receiving benefits. And when I talk about the benefits, I'm talking about studies that have been done by think tanks and organizations where they go to each state and they find out all of the different benefits that you can get. And that's if you qualify for those benefits. And then they create a picture with numbers of what welfare benefits look like in each state. Like in Hawaii, it's like $68,000 a year, something like that. So I now have this source up here. The source that I'm looking at right now is the Federalist Papers. They're using information that comes from a study from the Cato Institute. And that study talks about welfare benefits payouts more than a full-time minimum wage job in at least 35 states. In at least 13 states, the payout is more than $15 an hour. And even more shocking, if someone were to draw all of the welfare benefits available to them, their pay would be more than half of that of a newly college-educated teacher in 11 states and add up to more than the salary of a computer programmer in 3 states. Now, I've read this story from many different links. I was able to find this one just in a quick search. In fact, I think the best place for me to look is at cnsnews.com, and I will put that link up as well. If you're interested in seeing the chart that I'm referring to, and I'll just give you a few states from the chart. How does your state rank is what the chart is called. Source is called the Work versus Welfare Trade-Off 2013 Cato Institute study. So, that's 6 years ago they did this study. You would only assume that the numbers have gone up. In Missouri, the pre-tax equivalent is $22,800 a year. Now, I've seen another study that showed it being much higher than that. I will look at Texas. I have to scan these individually because they have them listed by who gets the most. In Hawaii, it's $60,590 or $29.13 an hour. And in Texas, the pre-tax equivalent for benefits that you can get in that state for welfare is $12,550 or $6.03 an hour. So it's pretty low in Texas. It's pretty high in Missouri, $22,800, Ohio, $26,200, Alaska, $26,400, Maryland, $38,160. And then from there, it's the typical states you would expect to pay a lot in welfare benefits. New Hampshire, Vermont, Rhode Island, New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, District of Columbia, which pays $50,820, and then Hawaii. So like I said, I've got this this post here, and I'm going to stick it right now while we're on the show so I don't forget, right on the Facebook page. If you want to see these numbers yourself, you can check it out. Welfare numbers by state. Welfare payout numbers. And I'm doing that because I had email from a listener questioning where I got that data from. And I have no problem answering that question. And I am careful about what I'm sharing here. I wouldn't have said that if I hadn't seen the data from a source that I felt was trustworthy, the Federalist Papers. It's a good website. It's a trustworthy source. I wouldn't share that here if I didn't have a place from which to get that information that I felt was trustworthy. I'm not speaking of personal, individual situations. I'm not referring to any one person or group of people or family. I'm only talking about what I've read on this study. So it's not a personal statement. It's not a judgment. And it's certainly not meant to offend anyone. So there's that information for you. So now we've heard from the acting White House Budget Director, Russell Vought, about how Congress has been ignoring President Trump's budget reductions for the past 2 years. And I did mention yesterday, we have 2 more things to get to. First of all, this House AG chairman saying that requiring SNAP recipients to work is not going to happen. And I just want to say, this is U.S. Rep. Colin Peterson. He said, I guarantee you it's not going to happen. The Trump administration's policies requiring states to enforce work requirements for SNAP recipients isn't going anywhere. Peterson's comments came after a U.S. Department of Agriculture Secretary, Sonny Perdue, testified last week before the House Agriculture Committee. Now, he was talking about the state of the rural economy, and committee members asked him about the impact of tariffs on farmers, supplemental nutrition assistance program benefits, and the effects of natural disasters, the expansion of rural broadband access, among other questions. Now, the Trump administration is reviving a 22-year-old federal regulation that has enabled states to acquire waivers exempting able-bodied adults without dependents, ABWDs, from having to work or undergo job training. Do you hear that? People sitting around on their duffs, not working, not getting job training, they don't have kids, and they're not working. But they're getting food stamps and benefits. Now, I'm not talking about people who are disabled. This is not about people who are disabled. It's about able-bodied adults without dependents. So let's be clear here before anyone gets, worked over that I'm discussing this. We're not talking about people who have a disability here. We're talking about people who are just as able-bodied as anybody else who could be pumping gas or working at, Aldi, Walmart, anywhere. They could work anywhere, seated in a desk, typing in information, data entry, whatever. They're not working at all, and they're still getting welfare. It used to be that you could only get welfare if you were a woman with kids. That definition has been obliterated, and now you've got all this stuff. People defrauding the government, because to me, that's fraud. So it's not helping people to get from being on welfare and being dependent and getting to a place where they can be independent. That doesn't help them. If we don't say you have to work in order to get somewhere, then you're not going to see people working. I mean, just think about it. Oftentimes, the incentive for us to do something is external. So we may want something, but if we don't have an external incentive, if the incentive is only within us, some people are driven, they will get everything done. And other people are somewhere in between where they need some external incentives and some of it comes internally. And for people who are getting welfare benefits and they're not working and they're not getting job training and there's no end in sight, why, if they're already inclined to sit, a body in motion stays in motion, a body at rest remains at rest, these bodies at rest are going to remain at rest as long as they're getting these payments from able-bodied taxpayers who are working and paying those taxes. So it's wrong. That is absolutely wrong. And we've got to put a stop to it. Now, the other story that I wanted to get to before the end of the show today is about these AirPods. So 250 scientists have now come out with a warning about these AirPods. And I'm just kind of like, I'm really surprised by the fact that they keep making these products that have these issues and we just keep buying them and using them. And I don't have any AirPods because I think they look stupid. So it sits in your ear and it doesn't have a cord. But to me, it's just something teeny tiny that can get lost because with the cord, you're able to like wind that around your fingers and, kind of bundle it up and keep track of your headphones, your little earbuds. Without the cord, you just have the two little pods. How are you supposed to keep track of that? And they keep making the iPhone less friendly. Like the one I have is a 7 and it has this little, this little tiny charger thing and it's shaped like a teensy little square. And what's so funny is that it's also your headphone jack. They removed the little circle for the traditional headphone. So it seems like it's like, that's so convenient, but it's not. If you're somewhere and you don't have your Apple earbuds and like, let's say you're on the plane and the stewardess gives you some, plane earbuds. Well, you can't use them unless you have the adapter with you. And good luck finding that. It's tiny. It's easy to lose. I had one in my purse I thought I was keeping and I don't have that anymore. I have no idea where it went. And so there's that. And then there's this the issue of us, like we are so connected to these smartphones and we're not being told about everything that has to do with the smartphone that might be a negative for us. We're only told about, hey, use your phone for this convenience. Use this to learn that. We're only told about the good parts. So the story is called Are Wireless Earbuds Dangerous? 250 scientists warn that they very well may be. So Dr. Moskowitz, a University of California, Berkeley community health professor who focuses on cell phone exposures, says there isn't even research on what this could do to the brain yet, let alone regulations to limit the potential effects. He says, I can't imagine that it's great for you. And he's talking about Apple's wireless AirPods, which communicate with one another using a magnetic induction field, a variable magnetic field. One sends through your brain to communicate with the other. So Clearly, this is easy for us to comprehend. The earbuds sit one in each ear, and the thing that's between the earbuds is your brain, right? So they use a magnetic induction field to communicate. They're communicating through your brain. Now, if you have a cord, they're communicating through the cord, which doesn't run through your brain. So it's okay, right? So it's a totally different technology. They don't have any studies to show its effects. We already know that the Silicon Valley guys are like, hey, you know what? We can do whatever we want as long as we get people to feel addicted to our products. And also, we don't have to have studies. We don't have to test stuff. We're just going to roll stuff out. And if it looks cool, if it's new, people will buy it. Because my husband said, it was so funny. I was complaining about the fact that when I got this iPhone, it was actually an upgrade from a 6 Plus that I had. And I filed an insurance claim and got it. And they gave me the 7 instead of giving me a 6. And I immediately noticed some of the, something wonderful about it was that you had more screen. But what wasn't wonderful was this stupid charging thing, which was also your headphone jack. And my husband said they're doing that to get you to buy more stuff. People aren't buying enough headphones, so they've changed it. So now you have to buy it if you have this phone. Or you could just buy a different phone, a more expensive model. Either way, they're going to get your money. And then he laughed. And I was like, oh, thanks, technology guru. So you've got this magnetic induction field, and they're using it to communicate. The pods are in your ears, and they transmit this field through your brain to do the communication. Wireless technologies are simply outpacing both research and regulation, and it could have disastrous effects on your health. So I'm not a doctor. I am not telling you that you cannot use AirPods. I'm also not telling you what you have to do. You do whatever you want, but I'm going to do this show just because that's what I want to do. And please don't go on my website or any place like that and email me about how you're using AirPods and you can't believe I'm acting like a doctor and now you don't like me and I'm not a Christian. Save those comments for your spouse or whoever it is you're really mad at. I don't want to hear it. So the petition warning that a microwave radiation from many popular wireless technologies may pose health risks has garnered 250 signatures of scientists. Now, the scientific jury is actually still out on whether or not particular devices can cause cancer, but animal studies on the kind of radio frequency radiation that they emit, which is used in Bluetooth, cellular, and Wi-Fi transmissions, has suggested a link to cancer. Now, a lot of things that we have in our environment have suggested links to cancer. So that's not actually that outlandish. But the question is, how can we minimize that risk while still having access to the things that we want to use? And it says in some levels, the level of radiation can be found to be carcinogenic. Okay, let me do that again. The levels of radiation found to be carcinogenic were significantly lower than the maximum allowed by federal and international guidelines. So that means the risk is low. Last year, Apple sold 28 million pairs of its tiny white wireless earbuds. The year before, they sold 16 million pairs. With a new design reportedly on the way, the technology company is set to profit even more on these tiny devices. Now, Apple and Beats wireless headphones account for 40% of the product market. But the devices could be pumping more than Beats into the wearers' heads. So I would just say exercise caution. Maybe police yourself. How often a day am I going to use these earbuds? What I try to do is I try not to use, because I have to have earbuds or headphones on, which I'm using my headphones because my earbuds are broken because I took them on that trip and I totally trashed them. I use headphones for at least 2 hours a day. So that means I'm trying to limit the remainder of the day that I use it. So obviously, I'm home alone most of the day, so I can listen to whatever I want to and not have to worry about disturbing other people. But I try to minimize the amount of time I use earbuds, period. Even if they're the ones with the cords on them, I don't have the AirPods. So it's all about moderation and not accusing me of trying to be a doctor. Just want to put that out there one more time for anybody who's got their little fingers curved over the keyboard. Don't do it. Save yourself the time because I don't care. All right. Thank you for watching the show today. God bless you. I'm going to say good evening from the Heartland. Citizens, be back with you tomorrow.